Dear students, welcome to the lesson on the poem Digging, written by Seamus Heaney. In this lesson, we will look at the details about the author in the poem Digging, and Stanza's meaning and analysis. And we will look at literary devices in the poem, and we will look at the summary of the poem, and some references also are given. Digging poem was written by Seamus Heaney. His full name is Seamus Justin Heaney. He was an Irish poet, playwright, and a translator. He was born on 13th April 1939 in Northern Ireland. He died on 30th August 2013. His occupation was mainly a poet, playwright, translator. And some of the notable works by Seamus Heaney include Death of a Naturalist, North Field Work, The Spirit Level, Beowulf, A New Verse Translation, District and Circle, Human Chain. Some notable awards received by Seamus Heaney include Geoffrey Faber Memorial Prize, E.M. Foster Award, Nobel Prize in Literature. He received the prize in 1995. And T.S. Eliot Prize, the Griffin Trust for Excellence in Poetry Prize, Lifetime Recognition Award received in 2012. Seamus Heaney was recognized as one of the principal contributors to poetry during his lifetime. American poet Robert Lowell described him as the most important Irish poet since W.B. Yeats. Many others, including the academic John Sutherland, have said that Heaney was the greatest poet of our age. Robert Pinksy has stated that with his wonderful gift of eye and ear, Heaney has the gift of the storyteller. Now let's look at the poem at stretch. Digging. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests, snug as a gun. Under my window, a clean rasping sound when the spade sinks into gravelly ground. My father, digging. I look down, till his trailing rump among the flower beds bends low, comes up 20 years away, stooping in rhythm through potato drills where he was digging. The coarse boot nestled on the lug, the shaft against the inside knee was levered firmly. He rooted out tall tops, buried the bright edge deep to scatter new potatoes that we picked, loving their cool hardness in our hands. By God, the old man could handle a spade just like his old man. My grandfather cut more turf in a day than any other man on Turner's bog. Once I carried him milk in a bottle, corked sloppily with paper. He straightened up to drink it, then fell to right away, nicking and slicing neatly, heaving sods over his shoulder, going down and down for the good turf, digging. The cold smell of potato mold, the squelch and slap of soggy peat, the curt cuts of an edge through living roots awaken in my head. But I have no spade to follow men like them. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests. I will dig with it. To listen to the poem in the poet's voice, you can click on the link given here. Digging poem. General introduction about the poem. Digging is an 8 stanza, 31 line poem. The poem starts off in the present, moves into the past, and then returns to the present and hints at the future towards the end. The poem doesn't have a set rhyme scheme as such and alternates between tetrameter and pentameter rhythms with several shorter lines here and there. Essentially, it is a free verse poem with strong internal rhymes, alliteration, and assonance. The reader is taken to the mind of the speaker, who is watching out the window as his father digs the garden. What is notable is the fact that the speaker holds a pen. From the first line, the pen holds the power of the present and on to the future, while the spade used by the father is distanced because it was a tool of the past. Gradually, the emphasis shifts from the here and now back into the past, a sensuous feel for the land with all its smells and sounds dominating the middle of the poem. The speaker is reflecting on the rural history of his family, the men who worked in the land. He concludes that they were born and bred for such toil, while he is made for something less manual. He will use the pen in much the same way that his forebears used the spade. Now let's look at the stanza-wise analysis of the poem. Stanza-wise, stanza 1. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests, snug as a gun. Let's now look at some of the meanings of difficult words. Squat here means short, thick. Squat pen means a short, thick pen. Snug means cozy, comfortable. The external meaning of the poem is the speaker or the poet starts the poem saying that there is a short, thick pen resting between his finger and his thumb. He compares the pen to a gun which is in comfortable position. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests snug as a gun. Now let's look at the analysis of these lines. A non-rhyming couplet. The opening lines set the scene, giving a close-up for the reader for the speaker's finger and thumb holding a pen with which he is writing. This pen is powerful and full of life-changing potential. The reference to a gun suggests that it can fire bullets, symbolic ones, of course. Note the slant rhyme of thumb, gun, which loosely binds the lines, while enjambment, that is the continuity of the lines, sends the reader straight from the end of the first line onto the second. Stanza 2. Under my window, a clean rasping sound when the spade sinks into gravelly ground. My father digging. I look down. Let's now look at the difficult words and their meanings in the second stanza. Rasping means rough, harsh. Spade, it's a tool used to dig the land. It can also be called a shovel. Gravelly, rough, harsh. Let's now look at the superficial meaning of these lines. In the second stanza, the speaker or the poet says that he hears a clean, rough, harsh sound under the window of his room, that is, outside the room. He further says that the sound is emanating or coming from the act of digging the rough, harsh ground with a spade. The worker who is digging is none other than his father. That means his father was only digging there. The speaker looked down the window to watch his father digging. Let's now look at the analysis of the second stanza. The second stanza contains three lines, with the third and fourth line fully rhymed, which points to a strong bond, sound ground. Stretching away from the tetrameter of the opening two lines, these are pentameter, allowing for more content. The speaker can hear someone digging into soil. It's his father. It must be a familiar sound to the speaker. He knows it's his father even before he looks down. Again, enjambment, that is, continuation of a sentence without a pause from one line to the other line. It helps the flow of meaning between lines and also between stanzas. Stanza 3. Till his training rump among the flower beds bends low, comes up 20 years away, stooping in rhythm through potato drills where he was digging. Rump, the hind part of the body, that is the back part of the body. Stooping, bending low. Potato drills, evenly spaced rows of potatoes in a field. Let's now look at the meaning of these lines. In the third stanza, the speaker or the poet gives further information about the activity under his window. The speaker's father is training or working hard there, digging the land. His back is bending down and coming up. While bending down and digging, the father's picture is visible in the present times. But when he comes up, the speaker's vision sees his father in the past days. That is, the speaker's memories went back to the past days when his father used to dig in the potato drills. Stanza 3 analysis. This stanza contains four lines and there is no rhyme scheme. The stanza refers to the hard work of the speaker's father, both in the present and in the past. Interesting changes there in the tense as a speaker watching his father bend as he goes through the potato drills goes back in time 20 years, perhaps to when he was a child. Interesting observation is when the father bent down, he is in the present times. When he comes up, he is seen in the past times 20 years away. Stanza 4. The coarse boot nizzled down the lug, the shaft against the inside knee was levered firmly. He rooted out tall tops, buried the bright edge deep to scatter new potatoes that we picked, loving their cool hardness in our hands. Let's look at the meanings of some difficult words. Nestle means settle or lie comfortably within or against something. Leg, the lower part of the shoe shaft, a long, narrow part of section forming the handle of a tool. Lever, lift or move with a lever, scatter, disperse, or spread. The meaning of these lines is the rough boots of the speaker's father firmly and comfortably stand on the support of the leg or the lower part of the boot. Stanza 4, meaning continued. He, here, the father of the speaker, balanced firmly the shaft. Shaft means the long handle of the spade against his knee and rooted out the tops of the potatoes. That is, the father of the speaker balanced firmly the handle of the spade against his knee and rooted out the tops of the potatoes. By burying the bright and sharp edge of the spade in the ground, the father is unearthing the potatoes and scattering them. Others who were there, including the poet, were collecting the unearthed potatoes. The fresh potatoes were hard and cool. The poet could feel the hardness of the potatoes. Analysis of the poem. Now let's look at the analysis. The fourth stanza contains 5 lines. This stanza is the close-up culmination of all his father's spade work over the years. The speaker was there, observing the hard work, the detail, as his father went about digging up the new potatoes. Certain verbs like nestled, rooted, and buried give us the picture of rural landscape, while boot, knee, and hands bring a strong physical dimension. The stanza tells how strenuously and firmly the poet's father worked in the field while rooting out the tall tops and digging out the potatoes. With the sharp edge of his spade, the father scatters the potatoes, which were collected by others, including the poet, who was a child then. The whole stanza presents the past instants before our eyes by describing the physical movement, reaction of the senses like touch. Stanza 5. By God, the old man could handle a spade, just like his old man. It means the poet or the speaker says that the old man, that is here his father, the poet's father, was handling the spade just like his father, that is, poet's grandfather. Analysis of the poem. The fifth stanza contains only 2 lines. This stanza tells about the continuity of the skill of handling a spade or the act of digging from generation to generation. The poet's father was digging similar to the poet's grandfather. Now, this stanza introduces us to the poet's grandfather. Stanza 6. My grandfather cut more turf in a day than any other man on Turner's bog. Once I carried him milk in a bottle corked sloppily with paper. He straightened up to drink it, then fell to right away, nicking and slicing neatly, heaving swords over his shoulder, going down and down. for the good turf digging. Meanings of some of the difficult words. Turf means grass and the surface layer of earth held together by its roots. Bog, an area of wet, muddy ground. Toner's bog is an area where the poet's family worked in his childhood. Sloppily means loosely, carelessly, untidily. Nicking means to cut into or through. Slicing means cutting something into pieces. Heaving, lifting something heavy with great effort. Sod, grass or land. Stanza 6 meaning. The poet is saying that his grandfather cut more grass or turf in a day than any other man of their area, Tonnersburg, where the poet's family owned their farm. The poet says that as a child, once he carried milk in a bottle for his grandfather. The bottle was covered with a piece of paper. The poet's grandfather drank the milk and again immediately fell back to his work of cutting the grass and throwing it over his shoulder. The poet's grandfather used to go on digging the land further and further to find good turf. Stanza 6 analysis. The sixth stanza contains more lines than any other stanza in the poem. The poet provides more information about his grandfather in this stanza. Thus, the poet takes readers deeper into ancestral history. This time, it's not the potato being dug but peat, known locally as turf, which was dried and used for fuel in winter time. The opening two lines are the poet's tribute to an idealized, iconic figure within the family, the local hero, the grandfather, champion turf cutter. Turner's Bog is the name given to a piece of peat not far from Heaney's birthplace, the village of Belaghy in County Derry. Stanza 6 analysis. This stanza brings the reader intimately into a detailed scene where grandfather is out on the bog with his spade. The speaker or the poet goes to his grandfather with milk in a bottle. The memory of the poet is very clear as he is describing the past instant in a picture like manner. Heaney's use of enjambment in the stanza is particularly apt to produce relevant flow and pass. Note the repeat of the title word, which focuses upon the act of digging. Stanza 7. The cold smell of potato mold, the squelch and slap of soggy peat, the curt cuts of an edge through living roots awaken in my head. But I have no spade to follow men like them. Meaning of some of the difficult words. Mold means loose soil rich in organic matter. Squelch, a soft sucking sound made when pressure is applied to liquid or mud. Slap, a blow with the palm of the hand or a flat object. Soggy, wet and soft. Peat, a brown deposit resembling soil formed by the partial decomposition of vegetable matter. Curt, rudely brief. Stanza 7. The cold smell of potato mold, the squelch and slap of soggy peat, the curt cuts of an edge through living roots awaken in my head, but I have no spade to follow men like them. Meaning, the potato mold, or the land where potatoes are grown, is cold and has a distinct smell. The wet and soft land is making sounds when the feet and hands of the workers enter into it and cut the edges with spade. The memory of the cutting and other works in the potato pits recurred to the poet or the speaker. The poet or the speaker says that he has no spade like his father and grandfather to follow their footsteps and work in the fields. Now let's look at the analysis of stanza 7. The typical vocabulary pertaining to rural and agriculture work, like cold smell, potato mold, squelch, slap, soggy peat, cut, cuts, edge, living roots, spade, etc., takes the readers into the fields and gives a feel of personal experience. The last line in the stanza says that the speaker or the poet is not in the occupation of agriculture like his father and grandfather. He explains it with the expression, but I have no spade to follow men like them. We are not sure whether the poet or the speaker is regretting or not for not having a spade and for not being able to follow his ancestors. The memory of that scene is alive in the speaker's mind. It takes him back to a different time and immediately releases him from the past. It's a kind of paradox. By remembering these strong male family characters and their reliance on the spade for a living, he now is able to wake up. The family roots are cut metaphorically and in his memory physically. He no longer needs the spade because he is not made of the same stuff as the men of old times. It can be regret of not following his ancestors, or it can be the enlightenment that he has a better tool than a spade with him. Stanza 8. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests. I will dig with it. Meaning of this final stanza. This final stanza tells about the resolution of the poet or the speaker. The poet or the speaker says that he has no spade with him to dig like his father and grandfather, but he has the thick, short pen between his finger and his thumb. The poet or the speaker says that he will dig with his pen now. Analysis of stanza 8. This final stanza gives the logical culmination of all the memories and dilemmas that come to the mind of the poet or the speaker. In the previous stanza, that is seventh stanza, the poet says that he has no spade to dig the field like his father and grandfather. Now, the poet or the speaker announces that he too will follow his father and grandfather in digging, but with a different tool. Now he will dig with his pen. Digging with pen means contributing for the betterment of the society with his writings. Writing literature is also considered as one type of cultivation. The stanza analysis was completed. Now, let's look at the literary devices or the poetic devices used in the poem Digging. Let's now look at rhyme in the poem. There is no set rhyme scheme for digging, no established pattern of end rhymes. The only full rhymes occur in lines 3 and 4, sound and ground, but these are not a part of a scheme. But internal rhyme is there in the poem. Look, stooping, boot, rooted, cool, and again with the words like between, clean, knee, deep, neatly, heaving, and thumb, under, rum, up, leg, cut, turf. Use of these long and short vowels brings or gives the poem a depth of contrast in various stanzas. Now let's look at the meter of the poem. In poetry, meter is the basic rhythmic structure of a verse or lines in a verse. There is no set regular meter in this poem, although tetrameter, that means 4 beats per line, and pentameter, 5 beats per line, dominate. Especially, there are more pentameter lines in the poem. This steady core parallels the action of the digger, steady and without extremes. Shorter lines tend to slow things down. So note that stanzas 2, 3, 5, and 8 end with short lines to reflect the slowing down of the spade work being observed. Now let's look at another literary device, metaphor. A metaphor is a figure of speech that is used to make a comparison between two things that are not like but do have something in common. The pen is the spade. The speaker declaring that he will use the pen to dig with, leaving behind the tool of his forefathers, the farmer's spade. That means, actually, the words and the meanings of the pen and the spade are entirely different. But here in this poem, the poet is comparing his pen with that of a spade, and he wants to dig with his pen. Another literary device, alliteration. Alliteration is the occurrence of the same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. That means, within the words which are set side by side, if the occurring of the same letter or sound is found, then it is called alliteration. There are several examples of alliteration in the poem Digging, which enhances the sound and brings variety and interest for the reader. Spade sinks gravelly ground, tall tops buried the bright, squelch and slap, cut, cuts. These all produce the effect of alliteration. Now let's look at another device, repetition. Repeating certain words and phrases in a poem gives the reader a clear message of importance and emphasis. It can also be an echo of the action taking place, in this case, that of digging, which is most definitely repetitive. So look out for the words digging, spade, down, men, turf, and the first line and off between my finger and my thumb. The square pen rests. Another device, onomatopoeia. Words that sound like what they mean. For example, squelch, slap, soggy. Now let's look at the final summary of the poem, the total summary of the poem, Digging. Digging is a poem written by Seamus Heaney. He is an Irish poet, playwright, and translator. The poem starts off in the present, moves into the past, and then returns to the present and hints at the future towards the end. While holding a pen between his finger and his thumb, the poet reflects upon the rural history of his family. The poem starts with the poet's description of his father working under the window with his spade. The poet's father was digging in the garden. The notable fact is that the speaker holds a pen like a gun, which is a symbol of the power of the present times, while the spade used by his father is a thing of the past. Looking at his father digging, the poet goes back to the memories of 20 years past. In the past, his father used to dig in the potato drills. The poet also used to involve in collecting the potatoes or gathering the potatoes that were dug by his father. He still remembers their coolness and hardness. The poet says that his father was able to handle the spade just like his father, that is, poet's grandfather. That means the poet's father and grandfather could handle the spade very comfortably. Now, the memory of the poet further shifts to his childhood days when he saw his grandfather digging a turf, a grassy land. His grandfather was the best cutter of turf in that area. The poet also informs how he took a bottle of milk for his grandfather and how he drank the milk and immediately went back to his work. The poem presents the rural setting by describing the visions and sounds of the field while his grandfather was working. Thus, the speaker or the poet remembers all the past days of work in the field both by his father and grandfather. The poet says that now he has no spade to follow in the footsteps of his father and grandfather. The family roots are cut metaphorically, but the poet says that he too can dig with his pen. Thus, the poem presents both nostalgic feeling of the poet as well as the differences between the occupations from one generation to the other generation. While the past generations used spade to dig the field to do cultivation, the present generation uses the mighty pen to enlighten the society with writings. You please follow the references given here, and these references helped me in preparing this particular presentation. And you also can visit my blog englishnotesummary.blogspot.com for finding out the EG summaries to various English literature lessons. And you can also listen to my lectures for different literature related lessons, poems, essays, and stories by accessing my YouTube channel, Noojilla Srinivas Writer. Okay, thank you, students. Thank you very much for your listening. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel and put your comments and put forth your doubts also, which I'll try to clarify by answering the comments. Thank you very much once again.